I'm sure you all know a lot about me by now, or maybe you don't, that's okay. But for the purpose of this story, I would like you to know that my family has a rather large amount of Irish heritage, meaning that we have lots of ancestors and such who once upon a time lived in Ireland. So a while back, I had a great uncle who was a very, very curious guy. And so being a part of my family, he knew that we had a lot of Irish heritage, and he just was curious about what that looked like, what it was like for the people who lived in Ireland back in the day. And so he went and he traveled to Ireland. And so he got to Ireland, and he did his best to just immerse himself into the culture. He danced the dance. He went to different pubs. And he just did about everything, Ireland kind of had to offer to kind of connect himself with that ancestry of ours. And so this was a while back, and so he heard about a castle that was once our family's estate. It was owned by one of our ancestors. And so he decided that he wanted to go visit this castle. So he went and he rented a car. And so he's renting his car, he's driving, and this castle is in a very, very remote part of Ireland. There's like basically no one around. He's driving through the hills, there's no one around, and there's maybe like a couple of sheep. That's it. And so he's driving along, and all of a sudden, his car dies. And he's like, man, what do I do? And so he tries to fix it, he can't. It's not really apparent what's wrong, but it won't start, nothing's working. And so he's like, man, so he starts walking. He's only like a couple miles from the castle at this point, maybe about 5 or so. And so it's a hike to get to that castle, but it's basically the closest thing there because there's nothing there. It is a very remote part of Ireland. And so he finally gets to this castle, this huge, grand, Baroque type castle that's it's immense. And he goes up to the door and he knocks.
Knock, knock.
And so he knocks and nothing happens. He waits and he waits. And so with no response, he knocks again.
Knock, knock.
And there's nothing, and he waits, and he's about ready to give up when finally the door opens. And on the other side, there is a butler waiting for him, and this butler's like, why are you here? There's never anyone here. And my uncle's like, well, my car broke down, you see, and so I need some help. But also, this castle is connected to my family, and I had an ancestor who owned this castle. And this gets the butler really excited. He's just really happy that there's someone who has a connection to this castle, and there's no one ever visits, and this is great. And so the butler takes my great uncle on a tour of the castle, and they tour everything. They tour the great tiny halls with these huge, massive fine tapestries that are just so pretty and nice to look at. And, it's all very nice, a little bit Spartan in the design of everything, what have you. But the furnishings were really rather eloquent, if a little bit old. It is a castle, so. And so everything's really cool. He gets to see all this cool thing. And so they toured the kitchen, which sounds kind of boring. You're like, why would you tour a kitchen? It's a kitchen. But it's a medieval kitchen with all kinds of cool cauldrons and spits and just different things that they used for cooking before they had ovens, electric ovens. So he's like, oh, that's cool. But in this kitchen, he notices this massive oak door. This thing is huge. It's got to weigh 250 or more. A big old solid thing. Looks like you could take a battering ram to it and nothing would happen. And on this door there is a massive lock. This lock is it's the size of a soccer ball, a football for you, Jess. It's huge, and he's like, what? Why is there a door here? And the butler just responds cryptically with, well, we don't go in there. And so He's like, well, that's weird. Is it like you just lost the key? Can you not go in there? And the butler's like, no, I have the key. And he shows the key. She shows the key to my great uncle. It's a huge key, like bigger than the lock. It's a heavy thing. It's got to be hundreds of years old. Massive key. He's like, wow, this is a big key. And so hands it back to the butler, and they continue the tour. And so the butler shows my great uncle everything there is to show about the castle. He learned so much about our family's history and the connection especially to that castle and the history of this castle and all the different lords and ladies who lived there and the knights and what have you. And so, but keep in mind this is a while back. They don't have a phone there, and so they can't call for help for like a tow truck or a mechanic to come out there. So they, and it's getting dark, so they're gonna have, the butler tells my great uncle, we're gonna have to wait till morning, and then we'll go to the nearest town, which is a ways away, and we'll try to find someone to fix your car there. And so they have a nice dinner, and then they go to bed. My uncle goes to bed. So he tries to sleep. He's trying to sleep, but there's just like something that's like in his mind. He just can't get it out of his head. It's just stuck in there. It's that great big oak door in the kitchen. He like just can't get it out of his head. So he goes to the kitchen and he's just got to check out this door one more time. For some reason, it's in his head. And so he looks at this door. He's checking it out, and he's like, man, what is behind this door? It's got to be something crazy cool, or just something, I don't know, like this was like the torture chamber or something. And so, but then he's like, well, but maybe it's just something like, I don't know, sensitive, maybe paperwork that they don't want people to steal. Who knows? Probably something actually pretty boring. He's not going to waste his time on it. So he goes back to bed. And he's sleeping, and he gets about an hour or two of sleep. And but then the door comes back to him. And he's got the curiosity, which is just a trait of his. He's got to know what is behind this door. And so he creeps out of his room. He's creeping through the hallways, and he goes to the room of the butler. And there the butler is, sound asleep, dead to the world. And so he sees the key lying on a counter nearby, and he takes it and he just borrows it for a little bit. And he takes his key and he heads to the kitchen to open the lock. And so he gets up to the lock and opens it with a big clunk. It opens, and he takes the lock and he sets it on a counter, takes it off the door. It's huge, and just thud onto the table. And so, all right, and then the door, he opens it slowly, and it creaks open. And he steps inside, but it's dark, and so he finds there's a candle and a box of matches just sitting right by the doorway. So he takes that, lights the candle, and it lights up the whole room. And in it, he sees a massive, hairy, terrifying, scary monster. This thing is huge. It's chained to the floors and the walls so that it cannot move. But this thing just kind of like ignores him. But he's just terrified of it. It shocks him, and he's terrified. So he slams the door shut, locks everything back up. He's just like, well, I gotta leave this thing alone. I do not want to mess with this. This is bad news. Goes back to bed and like lays in his bed, but no, there's no way he's gonna sleep. No way. Not with that thing in there. And he just can't get it out of his head that this thing didn't even acknowledge him. Like, it's a monster. Wouldn't it be like, monster, or something like that? Nothing. It ignored him completely, and he just couldn't think. And so he thought, well, maybe it's like dead. Maybe, I don't know. My uncle's a curious guy, and if it's like something like that, he would love to, kind of figure out what this thing is. And so he decides he's going to go back and just see if this thing is alive or dead, or what's with this thing. And so he goes back to the kitchen, gets that big old key, unlocks the huge lock again, thuds it on the table, and the door opens with a creak. And so he goes up to this monster. He's just looking at it, examining it, and it doesn't even, nothing. And they're just like nothing. It's like it's this thing, I can't tell if this thing is alive or dead. And then this strange thought just comes to my great uncle's head. And so he's like, just on impulse, he reaches out and touches this monster. And this thing just looks at it, and it's terrifying, and it lets out a terrible roar. And my uncle, he runs, and he tries to get out of there, and he slams the door shut. And this thing, it just rips the chains out of the wall, bursts through the door. My uncle sprints out of this castle, trying to get away from this monster, running as fast as he can. This monster, it's slow though, and so he gains on it, and he's running down the road, getting away, trying to get away. And so finally, he reaches his car, and he prays, and start, come on, start. And it just won't. And all of a sudden, the car tips over, smash! The monster slams it over, rips open the door, and it just stares at him with evil eyes. And then it takes one talon, just holds it above him, and my uncle thinks, oh, I'm dead. I am so dead. I am a goner. And it reaches down, and it touches his chest, and says, Tag, you're it.